Studio 12 from the south end zone of Kyle Field. Will Johnson with you on this edition. Today, we're going to enter the quarterback room. We might as well just be watching a lot of film in here because that's what my two guests do nonstop in August. Connor McQueen is back for his weekly segment, and I guess, Connor, that means you tolerated us enough to return for week number 2 on this.
I did.
That's a good start.
Yeah, we had some fun last week.
So, and I almost should just let you introduce your guest of choice this week because you're spending a lot of time with him, like I said, in that quarterback room this
unfortunately,
August.
you had to spend a lot of time with this guy, So introduce the first guest of the show, Mr. Trevor Knight.
Glad to be here, guys. It's really an honor and a privilege to be number one.
I was about to ask, is there some sort of honor being the first guest Connor brings to Studio 12?
I think it
this
is.
season?
I don't know if it's something that he had to do or he felt like he had to do.
Oh no, we've got plenty to talk about. So I figured we'd get it off rolling. There were a couple guys, we're hoping for that number one spot. They were a little salty about it, but that comes with the territory, right?
Show like this, you're gonna ruffle some feathers.
We can't make any promises too quickly. Just going out on the airwaves, these guys want their name out there.
No doubt. Well, Trevor, at what point? I mean, I've noticed already in August camp, there's a lot of media involved this first week. At what point in time does it wear on you? When does it have to stop,
We haven't done a lot of media stuff, but it's been good stuff this week. Got to talk about our Haiti trip quite a bit early on in the week, and then today's media day, obviously. And so, you kind of put aside the time to get that all out of the way. And then from here on out, it's pretty much straight football until September 3rd when the fun happens.
Yeah. And, I thought maybe next week we'll give you the bye week, Connor, because
I appreciate
the pads
that,
go
right.
on. It's still hot. Is next week the real grind of this thing, fellas? Is that when it hits?
I think so. Usually, everyone's you always have the adrenaline. We're running very excited for that first week, just because we finally get to put the pads on and go out there and compete. But I think, once it gets into week 2 and week 3 of camp, that's when it kind of the monotony starts to set in a little bit where we're doing the same thing every day. And that's really when, the coaches kind of turn. They've already been preaching it with us already. Turn to older guys like Trevor and I and say, y'all got to keep the energy up, keep pushing these guys because it's very easy to kind of lull yourself to sleep and not necessarily take steps back, but not take any steps forward. And that's the main thing with camp is getting a little bit better every single day to where we're ready to play at the best of our abilities once UCLA comes around.
And a reminder to all of you. Go ahead, Trevor.
I'll brag on Connor real quick. He talks about bringing the energy and everything. And, you're standing out there going through team sets, and he puts his money where his mouth is because you hear coaches yelling, pick up the tempo, and then every once in a while you look over there, and it's majority of the time it's Connor screaming at guys to get lined up and things like that. So he puts his money where his mouth is for sure.
Yeah, he's an impact guy.
Definitely.
No doubt about that. That's why we got him on the show. He brings the energy.
Right. I'm just loud enough to where the mic's optional.
But are you going to get louder as the pads go on now? Friday evening's the first time you guys go full padded. Does the volume rise with you?
The volume rises. I usually end up having to take my helmet off, and then whenever I take my helmet off, I just get obnoxious, too loud. But that's some people block it out, but I get all fired up once people start hitting. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, good deal. A reminder to all of you that our August camp coverage from 12thman.com and 12th Man Productions will be with A&M all month long leading up to that first game week, and it's brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors, each report that we give you. Let's go back a little bit to really kick things off here. Post-spring is when you were named the starter, Trevor. Let me go to Connor again real quick, though, because you've been here for quite some time. To name a starter post-spring was a little unusual. Kevin Sumlin has not done that in his past at Texas A&M. Did it surprise you that Coach, not that he named Trevor, just that Coach named a starter before off-season workouts and August camp ever hit?
I don't think so. I think one of the things that I will say this is the first fall camp that I've been a part of where there hasn't been a true quarterback competition. Whether it was, my first year here, it was whenever Johnny got named the starter, or it was the role for the backup quarterback spot, and then for the next couple of years for the number one spot, to where I think Coach Sumlin has kind of seen how that's panned out, and he's kind of learned from those things, and that we realized that we really needed to name a guy before the summer started. That way, a guy like Trevor can really take the team by the reins once we start going through summer workouts. That way, everyone kind of has the same guy to look towards. Really, throughout workouts, throughout 7-on-7 and everything, to where we're going down the straightened path.
And Trevor, for you, did you sense it coming, or when you were told, was there maybe a part of you that thought, I wasn't sure they would name a starter at this point?
Yeah, I honestly didn't see it coming that early. I'm glad it did happen that way for all the reasons that Connor said before. But I've been through a couple QB competitions before, and it's always been, throughout fall camp and name a starter, 1 or maybe 2 weeks before the first game. And so this was nice. We kind of got to develop timing with the receivers, with the 1s and the 2s and the 3s, and kind of find our role. And kind of what I mean by that is, I was kind of the starter, take that leadership role, and then Jake got to go in with the 2s and find his role there, and then obviously Connor with the 3s there and find that role. And I think that's important. But at the end of the day, all 3 of us could have an opportunity to play this year, depending on the circumstance. So we all need to be ready to go. And just the way everything's shaped out, I think we're putting ourselves in a good position to do that.
And now, correct me if I'm wrong, and I think you mentioned this in an interview maybe a couple weeks ago. When you were told, was Jake in the room with you at the same time?
He was.
And you kind of wanted to be there for him. You had a little message for him that day, the moment you got the news.
I did. Like I said, I've been there before. I'd been named the starter in a QB competition, and I'd been named the backup in a QB competition. And my message to him was, keep being the same guy every day. It's going to take both of us. It's going to take the collective group of quarterbacks because, whether you want it to be that way or not, we're the leaders of the team and everybody looks up to us. And so if we're, making each other better every day, everybody else on the team is going to be better because of that. And like I told y'all a second ago, he's going to have a chance to play this year, whether it's in a, cleanup time capacity or whether something bad happens and he's got to play a whole lot of the season. He's going to have to play and contribute, so he's got to be ready to go.
Mm-hmm. We were talking to Connor when he came on last week about Noel Mazzoni. I find him hilarious. Connor would back it up, saying he's maybe even funnier in a film room setting or just around football guys. What's your take on the first-year offensive coordinator here, Noel Mazzoni? And for those out there listening, is he as funny as Connor and I make him out to be?
Absolutely. He's such a lighthearted guy. He didn't come off that way at first. Some would say he's a little rough around the edges just with his demeanor and he has a gruff voice, but he's hilarious. I mean, some of the things that he says in meetings and his vocabulary especially is it's definitely comical.
Mm-hmm. Connor, biggest difference between the Noel Mazzoni offense that you guys will be running this year as opposed to the past few years with Jake Spavital here?
I'd say I think this offense is more predicated. I mean, don't get me wrong, the other offense was very fast as well, but this offense is more predicated on speed and that there aren't any checks that the quarterbacks really, are obligated or really need to make because there's so many different options on each play where there's a run and a pass option on almost all the plays that we call. And that with the other offense, we'd call one play, but the quarterback had the freedom to where if we had certain looks that we would check something, at the line of scrimmage to where that sometimes would slow the pace down a little bit, slow down drives. But, a lot of times we were playing very fast. But I think that's kind of the main difference is just kind of taking that level of, not necessarily knowledge, but that added factor from the quarterback standpoint and transferring that just into a built-in play call from the sideline to where we can operate that much quicker.
And Trevor, for you, your past at Oklahoma, Josh Heupel was once your offensive coordinator. In this past season, it was Lincoln Riley.
That's right.
What adjustments have you had to make from what they were running to what you'll be doing with Noel Mazzoni here in Aggieland?
As far as the scheme and schematics of it, it's not much different. Things that I did with Coach Heupel or, with the tight end being in there a little bit more and things like that. We do that with Coach Mazzoni. And same thing with Coach Riley, spreading it out, throwing the ball around. We do schematically the same things. It's really just the terminology. It's same protections, really same route concepts even, just calling it different things. And so that's really the only learning curve. But as far as just operating the play and each play individual and as far as the scheme goes, it's almost identical.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I think that's a luxury for you guys in that quarterback's room, and I keep saying this throughout the summer on this show, is A&M starts the season with what I believe are 3 top 10 position units out there. Now, I put 2 of them on defense with the front, with Miles Garrett and Deshaun Hall and those guys, and I really think the Aggie secondary is a top 10 type unit with those safeties that you got, and I think the corners are better than people think they're going to be. But receiver, I think it's a top 10 receiving core. When you guys get into practice, you did your 7-on-7s this summer. Do y'all almost salivate at the opportunity with these guys out there running the routes?
Definitely, and Connor will back me up on this. Those guys are incredible athletes, incredible receivers, but I've also enjoyed watching the way they work this summer. A guy like Christian Kirk, every time I'm in the training room, he's in there getting treatment. Every time I'm in the weight room, he's in there getting extra stretching or, rolling out sore muscles, things like that. And then even post-route sessions, he's getting extra catches in, one hand, two hand, laces, no laces. He's very detailed in his approach, and that's what makes him such a great player, and that permeates through the rest of that group. They're just really hard-working guys that are naturally gifted, and so that combination together makes them pretty lethal.
Yeah, and we have good conversations in the meeting room to where it's almost like Coach Mazzoni has to tell us to throw to specific guys more often because we do have so many weapons that it's almost difficult to incorporate everybody each and every practice because we've got 4, especially with the ones, we have 4 elite receivers and each set with the ones, each quarterback gets 4 reps, and you got to make sure we distribute the ball to all of those different receivers equally while also running the ball to where I guess that's the luxury of it. I guess that's a nice thing to be able to have that problem where you can't get the ball to all those guys. But, I think that's one thing that we're really working on, especially right now at this point in fall camp.
Connor McQueen and Trevor Knight joining us on Studio 12. It's Connor's weekly segment on this show. But like I said, I think we're going to give you a bye week next week with the grind and the pads going on. This will be weekly during the season, but as we said, sporadically during August camp. So you might get your off week next week.
That'll be good. I can maybe get a nap.
Yeah.
I'll maybe I'll get
Exactly.
a nap next week.
But we'll have more with you guys on the other side of the break on this show. But before we toss it to commercial, speaking of the receivers, you've got Christian Kirk, you got Josh Reynolds, Ricky Seals-Jones, and then there's Speedy Noyle, who is as a dynamic a player as you can get when it's going right for him. But, Connor, you saw him last year, and maybe it didn't all go right for Speedy. But what is his opportunity this year, and how well is he doing? How did he do through spring ball, and how well is he doing in August camp? And Connor has seen this guy for a while, so after Connor, maybe you chime in on what you've seen from Speedy, Trevor.
He's one of the most dynamic athletes I've ever seen in my life to where he's made specific plays through my time here and through his time here that, it looked like nobody was going to be blocked at all, and he caught it one-handed and made 6 guys miss and went 70 yards for a touchdown to where, he does things that just kind of make you stand back and go, wow, he really just did that. And, it's just really what we work with him on is just consistency. And that's something that not only with him, but our coaching staff preaches throughout the entire team to where if you're going to be great, you have to be consistently great each and every day because, anybody can be good or great for one day, but you've got to do it day in and day out. And that's something that we're really working with him for.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the most talented individuals I've ever been around. Explosive as a player as they come. And he can make all the plays, and like Connor said, it's just consistency. And I've seen him continually work on learning the routes, learning the playbook, learning how to leverage certain things. And then the thing I've been most pleased with is his communication with me. If we have a mix-up on a route, he comes straight over to me, ask what I saw, ask what he can do better, things like that. And that's what's going to make you better. When we're on the same page and we're firing on all cylinders, it's a direct correlation between that communication process.
Welcome back to the South End Zone of Kyle Field. Will Johnson with you once more. Connor McQueen. I still don't know what to call you on this show. It's at some point you're not going to be a guest anymore. You're an analyst. You're an insider. And also I thought about we need to name your portion of the show. And I don't know, Trevor, can you help us name his portion? Here's what I thought. I don't know. Do you guys still call him Lightning McQueen? Does anybody do that anymore? Does that happen?
From time to time, it's
because if
faded.
It catches on, if we could call Connor McQueen this week with the Lightning Round.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Wow.
That's pretty good. Think? And then maybe like your personal nickname, like the Red Rocket or something.
Oh, the Red Rocket. Is that more prevalent than?
I don't think there's really anything too prevalent going on right now.
Oh. Well, something's got to get prevalent because we need
take it to the fans.
Let's all sleep on it. We'll
Open
reconvene
it up to the internet.
and we'll see what we got. But Connor is with Aggie quarterback Trevor Knight on this edition. Good to have him. And talking about August camp, and we just discussed the receivers a moment ago. And there's a wealth of experience and a wealth of talent. I think something that's a question mark for most people is the offensive line this year. And I'm not really sure how to look at it with you guys, because one of the things I was saying earlier this week on our Wednesday show is people like to look at offensive lines and ask how many starts do they have coming back. Well, if you look at A&M, that's not a whole lot. There's not Avery Genesee played all year last year, but there's some guys that got 1 or 2 starts in there. Trevor, for you, with these guys protecting you, do you have some concern about the offensive line and their experience, or do you realize, kind of like what I said, it's not as if the Aggies are completely devoid of experience with that position group?
Yeah, there's a bunch of guys, like you said, in that group that have played football before at a high level and have been on the field. That's not a starting role or playing, throughout the season, but they've been in the fire before, and that's huge for experience. That group's going to be fine. Coach Turner is the best in the business, so he's getting them into shape. But you've got guys that kind of fit every mold. You've got Avery Genesee, that's the veteran guy that kind of leads that group. And then you've got a guy in Eric McCoy that's a really cerebral player at center that does a great job identifying things, especially for a young guy. He's really impressed me there. And then a guy like Coda Martin, who's just kind of your put your hand in the dirt, fire off the ball, and give you everything he's got every play. So I'm not worried about him at all. Like I said, Coach Turner does a great job with them, and they're going to be ready to go week 1 and then progressively get better throughout the season.
And Connor, they're going to be responsible for something that's real imperative to you guys this year, and that's rushing the football. And I think we've talked about this in the past. Really the short yardage stuff. Mm-hmm. That's where the Aggies have to get better. It's not like you got to rush for 300 a game, but the 3rd and 1s and the 2nd and 1s, and there's going to be some 4th and inches and 1s and 2s that you got to get those.
Right, and I think that's one thing that Coach Mazzoni has really stressed since he's been here, and that right off the bat, his first meeting, he said we're going to run the ball if we're going to win in the SEC, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to run the ball to where we'd be in scrimmages during the spring, I remember, and he'd come into our meeting rooms and he'd say, all right, guys, we're going to throw the ball. We're going to go about 30-70 in terms of throwing the ball to running the ball. So I know you guys want to throw the ball, air it out, throw it around for the fans, but we're going to run the ball on pretty much every opportunity that we get, just so we can go ahead and establish that toughness and build that foundation for our team going forward, so that's what we want to be known for. And he's been saying even throughout camp is that everywhere he's gone, he's been able to establish that run game, and we want to be known as not a spread team that can throw the ball around, but we want to be that spread team that can run it right up your throat throughout the entire game, and especially in the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm. And Trevor, how does a quarterback make a team better at rushing the football? Because I think the units you look at when it comes to that aspect is offensive line and running backs. Is there a way for a quarterback to make a team better in those short yardage and grinded out situations?
Well, I think the answer to that is twofold. First is decision making. When they load the box up, we got to be able to complete the ball downfield to get those guys spread out. So whether or not it's checking the play or just making the right decision, that's the first thing. And then the second thing is that dual threat mindset. That just adds another player for the defense to have to defend. So when we're running all the zone read stuff, if we read it correctly, it can really put the defense in a bind, especially those defensive ends.
Mm-hmm. Mention that Friday evening is the first time the team will be full padded. And I think you guys have a shortened workout that night. I don't think it's going to be the full length. And then you'll get into really hitting each other next week. And kind of describe that grind for me, guys, because we hear it from coaches year in and year out that it's that second week, maybe on into the third, that it's easy for a team to hit a lull. Is it avoidable? I mean, do you guys do things to try to keep energy up? I know Connor does. I mean, but I mean, is there ways to keep an entire roster of about 120 guys, their energy up when that so-called grind is just right in the middle of it in August?
I think so, and you know, we do different things, and I know we're looking to do some different things coming up in this next week in terms of just, I mean, making sure that everyone remembers that we're out here having fun, and that I know it's one thing that Coach Sumlin does every year, and you know, fingers crossed we do it again. That it's one of everybody's favorites. Whenever we go through stretch and everything, we're out there in full pads, and then he says, "All right, call it up, let's go to the movies."
Yeah.
And you know, that's usually a sigh of relief from everybody, and everyone just sprints inside, screaming and yelling. And all excited to go sit around and watch a subpar movie in the movie theater, but you know. But I mean, I definitely think that we're going to do some things this year. I mean, I think from in terms of our standpoint, and you know, other guys on the Accountability Leadership Council, that we've got to do things in order to ensure that lull doesn't hit, because that's not what we want to be about this year. Mm-hmm. We don't want to hit any lulls throughout the season. We want to kind of continuously, take steps forward each and every day.
Yeah, because I'm a guy that just sits in the air conditioning through all this and talks about you guys, so I don't get the grind as much. But for you, Trevor, every day a player is asked to get better from what he was the day before. How do you do it when you're already named the starter? Because so much about what's happening in August camp is competition right now. Everybody wants a spot. It's a little different at a lot of these other positions. When you're the quarterback, only one can play. You can be a backup defender, but you probably get in the game quite a bit. But for you, already been named the starter, what do you focus on as far as competition-wise, seeing as you no longer have the position battle going on?
Well, you know, you still compete with your position group. So you're competing with those guys every single day because that's what makes you better. But you also compete against yourself. You want to make sure that you're doing all that you can do to be the best player that you can be. And so it's a day-to-day process. You got to make sure you go out there every day, give it everything you have, prepare in the right way, and really just take all the necessary steps to make sure that you're being that great player that you know you can be.
Yeah, I think one thing that really works for me, and I mean that Coach Mazzoni also preaches, that's really good, is you just want to set little goals each day, to where, you know, we weren't where we weren't where we wanted to be the other day in terms of completion percentage. So Coach Mazzoni came in and said, "All right, here's the goal for today's practice. This is just for today. We want to be 72% completions." And so, you know, that's really what we took out on the field with that mindset in our heads. We want to make sure we're getting completions. We're not throwing incomplete passes, stopping the clock. We're moving the ball forward, to where you set little goals for yourself each and every day, to where you can look back and reflect on that and say, okay, I accomplished that goal. I got better from where I was yesterday.
And how heated is the competition when the pads go on between the offense and the defense? Can that get ramped up a little bit?
I think it's especially day one. It
Yeah.
gets pretty chippy. Those guys are excited to hit one another, and people get fired up. And then you got guys like McQueen on the side absolutely going crazy.
And I'm in a black jersey.
I knew it was coming.
The defensive coaches just hate me because I'm screaming. And they're like, "Why don't you get in there then?" I said, "I just pointed at the jersey." I said, Coach Sumlin said I can't.
Yeah. I would. I'd be right in there, but Coach Sumlin said
Oklahoma drill, hand in the dirt. But, you know, the way that it works, it is set up, the system just does not allow me to do it. So.
I love it. Connor McQueen, Trevor Knight, Aggie quarterbacks with us on this edition of Studio 12. We're close to being out of time here, but Connor, are there any topics we haven't hit on with your man yet over here, Trevor Knight? Yeah, we're going to try and turn you into a broadcaster in your future.
Right,
Maybe
right.
Trevor likes this enough to be a broadcaster too, but if you put your broadcaster's hat on,
all right, Trevor.
what interview topic
Trevor,
needs to
give
be?
us a little insight on our 4 freshman quarterbacks that have come in this year. We have a plethora. We are now outnumbered as the elderly members of the quarterback room, so where we have 3 junior seniors, and then we have 4 incoming freshmen. Give us a little insight on all 4 of those quarterbacks.
Well, you know, we'll start with Michael Milstead, a guy that comes in out of Stratford High School, and he's a frat daddy. Let's just say it like it is.
Frat daddy, all right.
Michael Milstead is a great ball player, but he is also a great frat daddy. Then we can move on to Hank. Hank, I call him a model/actor, and if you guys have
Cheaper
seen
by the dozen.
Cheaper by the dozen, he is Hank from Cheaper by the Dozen, and I tell him that just about every single day.
That's Ashton
Steve
Kutcher.
Martin,
Ashton
right?
Kutcher,
Yeah.
That's definitely Hank. Gannon Rollins is a guy that always wants reps. He wants every single rep. And sometimes we just got to take a step back and say, Gannon,
you need to relax.
You're a young guy. You need to relax. You'll get there. You just need to.
Don't rush.
Don't
rush.
Calm down.
One day you're going to be 23 sitting in this room with 18-year-olds, and you're just going to be shaking your head, and you will know what I was talking about.
Exactly. But Gannon's great. And then Nick Starkel, a guy that comes in as the only scholarship guy in that freshman class. And very talented guy, and I've told him time and time again how good he's going to be in the future, but we love to give him a hard time. Actually, today he was in his full outfit, his jersey and his pants, and he's a skinny guy right now, let's just be honest. And I told him that his physique reminded me of Harry Walsh Jennings.
The volleyball player in the Olympics?
The Olympic volleyball player.
He was over there trying to do some curls before he took the quarterback picture. I go, Nick, just stop, man. It's nothing that you can do from now until these pictures are going to prepare you to look any better than what you already look, man. It's not gonna change.
But that's a fun group to
That's
work
good.
with.
Yeah.
Those guys are already feeling more comfortable since they've been here, and they're doing a really good job for us.
All right, Connor, before he goes, do you have any Duck Dynasty questions for him?
Perfect.
I have one.
I'll ask mine first. I was talking to my dad actually earlier this week, and funny story. I used to watch the Duck Commander VHS sets.
So did I.
When I was younger with my dad, and we would hear. I think it was the grandfather. He'd just say something. That's the last thing I'm gonna say about that. Yeah. And my dad says that all the time now,
Nice.
and he just from the Robertson clan, from the Duck Commander. VHSs, and my dad wanted me to ask you if you could get him a duck call, just one duck call.
I can certainly
just
ask.
one mallard duck call.
I don't think that would be a big issue.
I mean, not bulk, just an old, maybe used, semi-used. I mean, it doesn't even have to be new, just a duck call.
We'll see what we can do for
That's
you.
a simple request.
That. You're a good man.
That's not bad.
You're a good man.
I wanted to, because Phil Robertson was a quarterback at Louisiana Tech with Terry Bradshaw.
Right.
Have you had, some armchair quarterback type conversations with Phil?
I got to go to their house for lunch one time when I was up there this summer, and Papaw Phil is what they call him. Papaw Phil asked me how the Aggies were doing, so we got to talk a little bit of X's and O's together, and I didn't ask him about his time at Louisiana Tech, but one of these days I'm going to have to sit down and ask him all those details.
Because I want to say there was a year Bradshaw actually backed him up.
I believe
we would have to fact check that. I'm not 100% sure, but I mean.
Do we have a fact checker guy back there? Or?
Well, that's me. We'll have to do it on a different show. So we'll figure that out. But a great family to be around.
Family. Super down to earth. I've really enjoyed getting to know them all. And then obviously Sadie is second to none. She's an extreme encouragement in my life, and I've gotten to know her over the summer. And then now that we're together and everything, it's just been going really well.
And maybe she'll start listening to Studio 12 down here in College Station.
There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
You'll have to bring Trevor back. But, fellas, enjoyed it. All the best in August camp. Can't wait to see you guys take this field on September 3rd against UCLA. Connor McQueen, Trevor Knight, thanks so much, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Will. Appreciate it.